Good afternoon and welcome back to yet another episode of the Chiromo Hospital Group live discussion. And today we're live on Facebook, on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And we are going to be focusing on one discussion that we feel is very important to have right now. And the discussion that we're going to be having today is on drug and alcohol facts. So I am honored to be moderating a great panel with me today. Hersey and Bernard are here with me today, and we're also waiting for some more panelists who will join us as we carry on with the conversation. But as of now, we're just going to go straight into this conversation, and I'll start by introducing my panel. So I'll start with Bernard. Bernard is a well-rounded individual who has worked in the addictions, advocacy, and treatment fields for more than 18 years, combined in various capacities, organizations with a personal experience of who has had experience of more than 18 years of active addictions recovery. Sorry for that. Currently, he's the treasurer of the Addictions Prevention and Rehabilitation Association of Kenya and the treatment coordinator of Eden House, Parklands. What an introduction, Bernard. Thank you for being here with us. I'd like to give you a chance to say something brief. You're muted, sorry.
Thank you for that great introduction. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about this very important topic. I hope this week has the impact that we're looking for in terms of advocacy and more people getting to know about what they're putting in their bodies, what is happening in the society, and what is happening in terms of what is a way forward that we can mark for ourselves and for the society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernard. We're honored to have you in this conversation today. To the other side, we have Hersey. Hersey is a psychologist and a mental health advocate who is based in Kilifi County. So I like that you have representation from multiple counties today. Thank you so much, Hersey, for being here with us. And Mia, I'll give you a chance to say something brief to the audience today.
Okay, thank you very much, Pendo. Hello, everyone. As you have heard, my name is Hersey Hassan. I am a psychologist and a mental health advocate based in Kilifi. And I would like to say that I am honored to have been given this chance to talk about drugs and substance abuse, as it is one of the silent pandemic that seems to have been forgotten during the COVID-19 pandemic. So shedding a light on these issues at the moment will bring us back on track with the fight against drug abuse. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and I'm looking forward to a fruitful interaction with everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We're also happy to have you on board. And just to break the ice for this conversation, before we went live, we were discussing something on the back end, and I feel like this is something important for the audience to hear today. And what we're basically discussing is what is the reality of substance use post-COVID. And I think I'll just start with Bernard. What is your observation on substance use post-COVID? Sorry, Bernard, you're muted.
My observation being that along the process of progression of addictions, when COVID happened, due to the social pressures, the loneliness, the brokenness because people lost their jobs and everything, the process of from being an alcohol user or drug user to becoming an addict was quite shortened. For example, if somebody was to become an alcoholic or an addict with a process of about 4 years, probably, from the beginning of lockdown, by the end of lockdown, people are addicts and alcoholics immediately. Another thing that happened was now addiction could not hide. It came home. So everybody can now see the effects in their homes. People used to come from the workplaces or come from the clubs and the nightclubs very late and come home. Now people were drinking at home, so we couldn't hide the effects. There was less money to go around, and the drinking was happening in the home, or the drug use was happening at home, and things spiraled more and more out of control. I don't know, Hersey had mentioned something, and I'd like him to continue with the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Bernard, for that. Perhaps you'd like to add on that?
Yes, I would like to say something on that. We all know that the COVID-19 year took a toll on everyone. Most of us were affected either directly or indirectly. Yeah, we have some who lost their jobs, their source of livelihood, and that was very traumatizing for them. And as we all know, it is a basic instinct for most people to turn to things like drugs when they are facing hardships. So for me, according to the observation I've made post COVID-19, I can say that there has been a rise in the consumption of drugs and alcohol. More so alcohol, seeing as it is one of the most abused drugs in Kenya, and being it legal and it is readily available for that matter. Yeah, so to deal with the rising unemployment issues and reduced opportunities caused by the pandemic, yeah, most people have turned to drugs, and so these cases have been on the rise recently. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hersey. As you're carrying on with that, there's someone who joined us in the conversation, that is Ken from Nakada. But when he joins us back, we'll give him a chance to introduce ourselves. But going back to the conversation, I was just going through statistics on matters drug and substance use, and from the latest World Drug Report, it was showing that over 35 million people suffer from substance use related disorders or illnesses. And this is on a worldwide perspective. I'd like us to narrow a bit down to the local perspective, having that all of us here, I believe, from Kenya. I'd like to hear, let me start from Bernard once again. What is the reality of drug, substance, and alcohol use in Kenya, and why do you think now we should say no to drugs more than ever?
Thank you for that question. There was a research carried out by NACAD, I think it was about 5 years ago, which showed that we have about 2 million people abusing alcohol, 2 million out of a estimated population of 40 million at that particular time. Imagine another research was done just quite shortly after that, which showed that 1 out of 4 Kenyans will encounter having a mental health problem in their lives. And we know that one of the biggest exasperators of the disease of addiction is mental health. So imagine if these 2 million people, 1 out of 4 people, 1 out of 40 million is 10 million Kenyans. So we're talking about 10 million Kenyans who are prone to addiction from the word go. The story is no longer a story. It's now reality. It is now our neighbors, it's now our brothers, it's now our sisters. It is now us that are in trouble. So the reality being, we need to stop glorifying alcohol and drug use. We need to also continue having the conversation about mental health in the society. We also need to get people to have their lives are. For example, look at your own history. Do you have mental illness in the family? Do you have addicts and alcoholics in your family? Do you yourself have issues? Is it safe for you to start certain behaviors? So we need all that information in the simplest form possible to that pastoralist in Turkana, to that young Makanga hanging on a number 44 somewhere, to that border guard who's unfortunately allowing cheap alcohol from Tanzania into the country. Things like that, so that we know what we are doing and how it shall affect the people at home, ourselves, and the generations to come.
Wow,
And
thank you.
I pass on.
Thank you so much for that. And I like how you've contextualized it and breaking it down to everyone, for us to know that this is not a conversation that is targeting a particular population, but everyone, because it's something that cuts across all different demographics. Thank you so much for that. And you mentioned something that I would really like Herse to comment on. As you're talking, you brought about the element of genetic predisposition in your family. Is there a history of substance use or a history of mental illness? And I just like for Hersi to comment on this bit, as you also give your sentiments on the first question that I had asked Bernard.
Okay, thank you, Pendo, for this opportunity. And as my fellow Bernard said, according to statistics show that in Kenya, there are two main drugs which are highly abused. One of them being alcohol, the other one being marijuana. And statistics show that Kenya consumes 3 times more alcohol compared to our neighbors, Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda. So with these facts in mind, we have to consider why is that the reason. And now responding to your question on genetics, having a history of drug abuse in the family greatly predisposes someone to undertaking drugs. This is according to study which show that genes, which are the functional units of our DNA. So we inherit this DNA from our, let's say, like if your father is a drug user, those genetics, which are components of his DNA, he passes on to the kid who also has this DNA. And with these genes of like alcoholism and such, you find that this particular kid is more disposed to, is highly likely to develop a drug use addiction or a problem with drugs of some sort. Than compared to someone who doesn't have a drug history in his family. And also this kind of drugs, this kind of abuse is greatly related to mental health. We cannot overlook the drug use and mental health because they are somewhat related, and we have seen some conditions which are attributed to drug use, like how drugs mess with your brain function, they disrupt your normal brain function and can lead to some conditions like anxiety, impulse control, and one major one which is schizophrenia, which are majorly related to these kind of drugs, especially marijuana, which is very prevalent in our country at the moment. Even it being illegal, you find that it is readily available, just like alcohol. So these are the kind of things that we should be addressing, focusing on the physical and mental health problems that these drugs bring about. Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you for that, and also for being very upfront. And the reality in our country is that despite cannabis or marijuana being illegal, it is very readily available. And even more compared to some other substances that people really use. And I like that she focused on the two substances that are mainly used in our country, alcohol and marijuana. And for bringing in the connection between alcohol and substance use and mental health. It's a question that you'd hear a lot of times in the streets, people having around, especially when it comes to psychosis that is induced with substance use. And the myths that are around, with people saying it's not true that it can induce psychosis. I've taken it for 15 years. What do you mean? That it can induce psychosis, but the element on genetic predisposition and just appreciating the differences in human beings would answer that. If I come from a family where we have a history of mental illness, my chances of getting a substance-induced psychosis would be higher compared to someone who does not have that predisposition. So it is important for us to focus on our family histories, knowing what genetic predispositions we have in our families, because this will even help us, or rather guide the decisions we make around substance use. So I will start with Hersey this time, and the reason why I'm going to start is I'd like for you to comment on how can you recognize if I'm using drugs or substances more than, or rather, if it's getting out of hand. How will I recognize if my drug and substance use is getting out of hand?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I would like to start by pointing out that most drug addicts don't know that they are addicts. They just you'd ask someone about a certain drug he's using, and they'll tell you like it's just for pleasure, and you go ahead to prompt how many times do you use it in a day, and you can hear by the response that that's a lot of drug you are using. So to shed a light on how you can tell like you are becoming an addict, or like this substance is getting out of hand, one is like you are compelled, you feel compelled every now and then to use this drug. So you might find like every now and then you are thinking about this drug, like I need to use this drug, I need to use this drug. And that is the thought that is recurring in your mind. So for anyone who is listening, if you find yourself thinking about a certain drug and using it on a regular basis, yeah, that is a cause to worry that you might be developing an addiction, and that your substance use is getting out of hand. Yes, and also another thing is building tolerance. You see, more so in things like alcohol, there's this building tolerance that you see that like today you can take one bottle of beer and you are high. Tomorrow you take 2 bottles of beer and you get the same effect as the one bottle that gave you a high today. So increasing the dosage of the drug over time to achieve the same effect that you got the very first time when you had that drug, that is a sign that your drug use is getting out of hand, since you build tolerance for this kind of a drug. And now that should be a warning sign that you should seek help and address that issue. And also, if you find yourself in a situation where you are keeping that kind of a drug in constant supply, like you don't want it to run out, like even if you run out, you always know where to go and get it. Maintaining that constant supply is also an indication that this substance use is getting out of hand, since like you have a plan for like, if the ones I have run out now, I have somewhere where I can get it. Even if I don't have money to buy it, I can get it maybe on credit or something. And also spending more money on this drug, even when you can afford it, that whole point brings out the aspect of how this drug has been, you are becoming more addicted to this drug. You find that you don't have money, but you are craving for this drug. This is why most people resort to like selling household items. Some turn to stealing money to go and buy this drug and such things. And on my last point on this is when you fail to quit using this substance, and you really want to quit, but you can't. Even if you try, you just can't. Like this is now the point where you realize that you are getting in now into addiction, because you keep craving and craving and craving for this drug more and more. And if you try to stop, you find yourself experiencing like withdrawal symptoms. Yeah, now this is the point where you need to seek help and address this addiction. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hirsch. That was very elaborate, and I'd like to also give Bernard a chance to add on it. What are some of the ways that we can see that our drug and substances is getting out of hand?
Okay, Hersey really did a great job with the explanation. The only part I'm gonna add is because I'm also in addictions recovery. When I was in active recovery, when I was in active addiction, sorry, the when I started having a bigger preoccupation with the drug of choice. So I spent most of my time thinking about using, drinking, chewing, sniffing, or smoking something. So it became more like a career choice. You know how, like right now, we are at our workplaces and we are talking to you and all that. We have switched workplaces. Mine was nikuketi pale base, kushikisha veve, na kutafuta pombe, and the next thing, and I forgot about school, or was it work, or everything else. So responsibilities in life start becoming opposite. Another thing is the issue about the responsibilities, personal responsibilities. It will start from the simple things about showering, eating, even saying hi in the morning to your family members, your social life, your religious or spiritual life. Everything takes a back burner. Everything goes away completely. Your main focus now starts becoming, when is my next drink? When is my next money that I'm going to access so that I can get my next high? That's where the most of the focus is. Otherwise, Heresy has really explained everything very, very well.
Right. Thank you so much, Bernard, and to our audience who are watching from YouTube, through Facebook, through LinkedIn. This information is for you to be able to assess if this is something you're going on personally, or if this is something that you can observe in someone close to you. And Hershey talked about tolerance. And before we even go to the next question, I'd just like to hear from the panel and also from the audience. Please feel free to comment on the comment section. What are some of the ways that socially we have normalized tolerance to a point that it's seen more as heroic and not as problematic, for lack of a better word to use? What are some of the statements that are used out here on ground that normalize tolerance? I'd like to start with Bernard.
Buda, siku hizi kwani unakunywa kama mtoto? Mi lazima nichape Hennessy ndo akili iamke. Some comments we not as argues. For example, you go to a function and the first thing you want to do is wash your hands with something very expensive. And that's a social function. We have normalized that each and every social function that we shall attend has to have an accompanying drug of choice or an accompanying something along the way. And for us to celebrate that we are happy, or we are commemorating that we are sad about something, or we have to have some alcohol, we have to smoke a little bit of something, we have to do. And whereas God gave us and created us very normal, we can experience these things without adding extra chemicals in our bodies. So normalizing tolerance is actually the next level after normalizing use. So normalizing, we are siku hizi, kama unataka kuninunulia pombe, either uwekelee kreti na ukanyagia mguu ndo tuanze kuongea, ama siku hizi niliacha kunywa maji ya mtaro, hizo vitu mnaweka kwa chupa, nataka kukunywa makali. Because whiskey nowadays has got the same effect as 6 beers used to have for me. So I can only drink whiskeys now. Or I've stopped drinking these things, I'm now smoking some things, which is not tolerance. And then there's a dangerous part, which is reverse tolerance, which is, siku hizi naamka nachapa tot mbili, nalewa kabisa, narudi kulala. That usually means your liver is failing. No longer synthesize the alcohol in your body. You can no longer synthesize the drugs that are going through your system. It means that is what it means. I don't know what Hersey may want to add to that.
Yeah, Hersey.
Okay,
please.
Thank you, Bernard. Yeah, I don't have much to add, but I would say that in our society, the Kenyan society, like it's very normal to find like if you are, let's say, an alcoholic, you will regularly hang around alcoholics. Basically, you go out, you have fun, and normalizing tolerance comes in the situation where like you take like beer and your friends are taking like, let's say, the likes of Kina whiskey, which has an average of 42% alcohol. And then you'll hear people calling you a lightweight just because you are using beer and you can't handle the hard stuff. Or like in a situation where you drink beer, like let's say Tusker Cider, while your friends are taking the other forms of beer like Tusker Guinness, then you'll hear them telling you that this is a women's drink. Yeah, so at that point you might be more tempted to try theirs and leave yours. So in those form of context, you find that you are more prone to develop the tolerance for that as you want to match up to your friends and something like that. Yeah.
Thank you so
Can
much.
I add something?
Yes, please, Bernard.
Another part that we are also normalizing is now the conversation about marijuana. Marijuana use, it's now in music, it's now in everything. And for those of us that are scholars, can remember as to how the tobacco use was normalized, even if it was very, very harmful to people's health. So maybe this is something that people need to look at so that they can know how bad things may turn out 100 years to come when we will be looking backwards with hindsight. But we can use foresight right now to prevent an issue from happening because we know marijuana has got its problems and has got its issues. But now we have normalized it to a point whereby, let me put it this way. The younger we start using drugs and alcohol, for example, before the age of 21, when our brain is fully formed, the harder it is for people even to heal. The more the frequency of mental illness will also go up, and the more the likelihood of us passing on the genetic issues that we have incurred in our lifetime to our next generation. So it's also the normalization of some conversations which or should not be discussed by the people that are discussing them. That is the politicians. It should be something for the professionals to discuss and also legislate and also recommend about. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that and for even talking about how we should look at it in foresight. Yeah, and actually right now, use of tobacco, particularly in the cigarette form, is being, it has to be advertised. The harm of it has to be advertised on the packets for people to know the dangers that come from it, and that is after it has been normalized for very many years, and people have really grown to normalize the use. So thank you for bringing that to us, and that is more of food for thought for our audience to think about, to research, to study about, and understand the different components of marijuana and how it affects us as human beings. So while we are still on the same topic, I'd like to start first of all with Hersey to address what is the impact of drug and substance use in an individual's, to start with, social life. Let's start with the social life. What is the impact?
Okay, thank you for that. And as I mentioned earlier, like it's very common to find a drug user hanging around with drug users, and this is part of social life. Like maintaining good connections is difficult for people with substance use disorder. Like for some reason, they might withdraw socially in favor of using drugs. Like if you are hanging around friends who don't use drugs, like the high chances of you becoming irritable are high, just because, not because of them, but because you are in an environment where you can't use these drugs. So it becomes much easier for you to hang around your fellow drug users, because at that moment you feel like this is where I belong and they understand me better. And you feel like the other friends might be judging you. Yeah, so when it comes to this choice of friends, like it affects people socially, so that you don't have like people who will, you don't like hanging around people who might discourage you from this using this drug. And also addiction can change your personality. like I've mentioned, it makes you irritated, agitated at some point. It makes you feel anxious. And this is especially when you are hanging around people who cannot allow you to use this kind of drugs. And also, drugs will make you like develop some kind of suspicions of your relationship and lead you to believe like your friends are betraying you or like your friends are against you. So this is why you tend to withdraw from them altogether and focus on your drug use. And also when you are high and your pals are not, they might not like your company. Like this is now where your friends, you don't withdraw from your friends, but now your friends withdraw from you because they don't want to be associated or linked with someone who uses drugs because maybe because of their change in behavior and like their personality change. So it's like they don't know you anymore, and like the way you're acting is not the normal you. So they tend to avoid you completely. Yeah, I'd say that covers that on my end covers a bit on how social life is affected by drugs. That disconnectivity to society, to your friends and family, how you dissociate from them just because you want to get high or just because you want to use these drugs. So it becomes very, very hard for you to maintain these social connections. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hersey, for that. And I'd like to pass it on to Bernard. And as you're addressing it, I'd also like you to talk about one thing, the reality of someone who is in an active addiction recovery path. What impact does that have on their social life?
Okay, Hersey has looked at more the micro. I was thinking of, I would like to share on the macro, how it affects the community or the society as a whole. Um, Now I'd like us to compare two neighborhoods in around Nairobi. One of them being Kijabe. Kijabe is a non-alcohol, non-smoking town. It's actually a mission town. And I'd like to compare it to a historically high alcohol saturation area, outlet saturation area, such as Roysambu or Nairobi West. So the amount of crime, when you look at the criminal statistics from one area to the other, they're quite different. In Nairobi West or Roysambu, criminal issues are very, very high. In Kijabe, I don't even think there is a police station. The police station is actually near the highway, where they're dealing mainly with traffic issues and not criminal issues. Other thing that you will also see is also the health impact. The amount of addictions that will happen from one particular area, from Nairobi West, due to alcohol-related issues or drug-related issues. For example, people fought during the night, somebody hit the other with a bottle, somebody got alcoholic poisoning, or somebody just blacked out on the road and to do with him. Such simple things we will have in one particular neighborhood very high intake. In Kijabe Hospital, which is actually a mission, it's a referral hospital for our nation's needs. So they're actually dealing with what you'd call normal things, normal problems. Another macro social issue is on such areas, you'll also look at the spiritual welfare of the people. You might find that there may be religious institutions in such areas, but the amount of attendance and also adherence to spiritual practices is quite low in one particular area compared to another. I'm not demonizing a particular neighborhood, I'm just stating facts as they are. And the thing that people forget the most is that addiction is a multifaceted disease. It does not only affect the physical, it does not only affect the person, it affects the whole society. From your shopkeeper who you do not pay, to your phone that you have fulized, to the cop who, by the way, there's a cop who told me that they deal 35% of their time, they deal with alcohol and drug related issues. And this is a top cop that was telling me this. I don't know if they've gazetted that or they've done any research on it, but that was the estimate that they'd have done for Nairobi. 35% of their time, they're dealing with heavy bangi, and these other things. Instead of dealing with these other things that would have been much more useful. So you can see there's also a big waste of resources that has gone down the drain. We could have been used to do something else to better the society. I think I've covered that properly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernard. And what I hear from this is I am glad that we have people within our society who are looking out for those who are going through addiction currently, including our disciplined forces. And thank you so much for that. And there's a reality that I really wanted to bring about, and that is if someone has been on an addiction path for a good number of years, alienated some of the quote unquote good friends that they had, and are now heavily associating with the drinking buddies, or the buddies that they use substances with. And I'm wondering, or rather, I just like to bring this reality to this conversation. If this person decides to embark on an addiction recovery journey, what impact does that have on their social life? The reason why I am focusing on that is for us to be realistic in this conversation. It's important for someone who's on an addiction recovery path to be aware of the possibilities of also being either not intimidated but being alienated or ridiculed by the people that they used to indulge together with. And for them to be aware that this could be a potential stress, a potential trigger to, predispose you back to even more substance use. So I'm not saying that we should not embark on that path, but it is important for us to be very realistic about how, let me say, the reaction that you would get from the people you used to indulge together with, and how to prepare beforehand for this reaction as you start on your recovery journey. And I don't know if any one of you would like to comment on the same.
Okay, I would like to say something on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all know, recovery is expensive. Recovery is expensive, and now putting in mind like this person with substance use disorder, like along the way you've damaged a lot of relationships and you've broken a lot of trust. So when it comes to a point where now you want to turn back and say no to drugs and now you want to recover, rebuilding these relationships can be hectic and it is very hard. So you find that a lot of people in recovery tend to relapse a lot, majorly because they don't have the support system they need. So creating this support system goes a long way into ensuring that one fully recovers. And also, what makes it challenging is the fact that you might most drug users are associated with deception. Like if you don't have money to get drugs, you will deceive someone to get you these drugs. So when you come back to this person and tell him that you want to quit and you need his help, they might not believe you because you've deceived them so many times that this time nothing is of difference to them. But on the other hand, you are serious, but they might not believe you on that. So it makes it harder for the person in recovery to achieve full recovery just because of this failed relationship along the way and lack of a well-established support system. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hersey. Bernard, perhaps you'd like to add on that?
What I would also like to add is he talked about the support system. The support system is now mainly in the African context is the family, and also sometimes the employer. Now, if we also recognize that the disease is also social, and it also affects our relationships in a very great way. So you find that the disease also moves on to the people closest to us. So the people closest to us are not part of the recovery program that you have embarked upon. It is very easy for them to get you back into the same trap that you were in. For example, one of the conditions that people develop is what is called codependency. And to put it in a very simple way, it's that people become addicted to the addict. And let me give you a very good illustration, is whereby everybody at home is waiting for the man or the woman of that house to enter. And when they enter, they look at their moods and they will act according to that mood. So their lives are literally held in hostage by these people until when they get home. That's when they'll know what to do. If they're screaming and angry, there are those that will parachute out of the window, go under the bed, go to the neighbors. The other one will atapasha chakula moto, patiana, go and eat this. So we need also to empower, encourage, and also treat the families of such persons who are in recovery so that it becomes the whole society is in recovery. Secondly, also part of the support network is also the churches, the religious institutions. Luckily now the people are getting much more information on the ground, but believe me, sometimes they harm more than they can help. So we still need to do quite a lot on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. And before I move from you, how would you comment about the impact of substance use on a person's financial life?
Financially, wow. Let us start with the very noticeable things. Once your drinking or drug use has become a career, you can now no longer financially take care of yourself or take care of your financial issues. So your life is centered around the use of drugs, the use of alcohol, and everything that is related to it. Even forgo bus fare to the pub so that you can save that 20 or 30 shillings to add it onto the alcohol. You'll even sacrifice food to add it onto the alcohol. So you'll no longer become a good earning person. Your earning capabilities go way down. So that's firstly. So there's loss. So the first thing that you may lose is your economic activity. The next thing that you may lose is your assets. That be your car, your house, your property. The first thing that every alcoholic or addict loses is their phone or their wallet. And moving on forward, we also look at irresponsible taking of loans. When we take loans for no practical use, we just use them to drink and to drug. And the most expensive partially being the hospitalization due to very many reasons. Hospital is very expensive. Even treatment is also very expensive. But when you look at treatment, it's still cheaper than replacing a liver. Going for a liver transplant or for a heart transplant or going for psychiatric help because you used drugs and alcohol for a very long time. I don't know if Hersey has got more to add to that.
Sorry, Hersey, you're muted.
Oh, so sorry about that. And financially, drugs can take a toll on people. Like, for instance, losing a job. Like when some drug users have impaired performance, like intoxication at work. Some come to work while they are drunk and something like that, or they come to work late. Others have disciplinary issues at work, and also some don't show up at all, absent every now and then. So this might lead to you losing a job. And if it is your only source of income, that can cause a financial strain on you, since there is no way you can get money to bail yourself out on these kind of issues. And also, there are some legal fees involved, like for these drug users who might turn to criminal activity, who might turn violent or something of the sort. Like even those who deal drugs, like it's not unlikely for you to have an encounter with the law, and paying those legal fees like fines and such can be a strain on your finances. and also paying for recovery if you're willing to recover now. As I said earlier, that recovery is very expensive. Yeah, it can have significant expenses for you as a recovering addict. And also drug addicts may need to spend more money on medical services, seeing as a result of their addiction, they may develop things like physical and mental health problems, which necessitate counseling or medical bills, medical appointment, doctor's visit, and we all know how costly these things can be. And also, in a not only does it cost you to pay for this addiction, seen as no drug is cheap. Drugs are expensive, like especially now when you're an addict and you're consuming them frequently. Drugs are expensive. So you financing this addiction is very expensive, and it will greatly impact your financial capabilities, since as you'll be directing mostly all your finances to financing this addiction. And in a position where maybe you are not able to work for it, now that becomes a problem. Now you are losing your job, you have this drug you need to buy, so that can cause a lot of strain on you. And lastly, coupling all these problems that you incur, the bills and whatever, it can lead to like poverty. There is a very high connection between poverty and drug use and homelessness. You might end up homeless for just because you've sold everything in your house, you can't now afford to pay bills and things like that. Yeah, so these are the some of the financial strains that people experience when they are battling this drug use. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hersey, for that, and for also highlighting that with regular use, substances can actually be very expensive. And one of the activities that have been shown to build insight on the extent of substance use is the economics of addiction. Just sitting down with pen and paper or your calculator and, going down to the math. How much are you using in alcohol in a day? By 7, by 4, by 12, just looking at how much you spend on substances, not necessarily alcohol alone, but how much you spend on substances in a particular span, and looking at what you alternatively would have done with that amount of money, and not just the amount that you've used to purchase the substances, but the fines you've had to pay off, the cops you'd have to pay off, and things like that. Just looking realistically at how much you're spending on substances. And this is a challenge that I'd like to pose to our audience. If you feel like you'd like to do that particular exercise, I'd like to challenge you to do it from the comfort of your home. And as we come towards summing up this conversation, there's someone from the audience by the name Bet Joffrey who is saying, "Good job, bro." I'm not sure who bro exactly is, but I'm sure it's not me. So it's either Hersey or or Bernard. So you seem to be doing a good job, and there's someone who is enjoying this conversation from the audience. Thank you so much for that, Bet. And there's someone by the name of Muthoni Stevens who was also saying she is looking forward to this conversation. So very timely conversation, much needed conversation. Thank you so much, Muthoni, for following through this conversation. So as a summing up this conversation, where can people get real-time, accurate information about matters drug and substance use? I'll start with Bernard.
Okay. Concrete and accurate information about drugs and substance abuse, you can look at the NACADA website. They usually do some research and they will publish for you the latest research. Like I think right now they're doing some research and we shall see some of the findings. They'll also publish for you as a person the rehab centers or treatment facilities that are accredited to give any type of help at this particular time. The other places that if you do not have that access is the helpline 1192. I think it was handed back to the Red Cross. but it's usually a healthline. It's usually for free, toll free. But if you'd like to have a face-to-face encounter, if you have, after you've gone through the NACADA website and you've seen the centers which are near you, go and visit them, go and talk to them. They should be staffed with psychologists, maybe a psychiatrist, a consultant psychiatrist, a counselor, and those people will be able to put you on the right path. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard, for that. How about you, Hersi?
Okay, for me, I'd say that in the world of technology, the internet is the best source of information. But at the same time, it can be misleading since the majority of people don't know where to source for the legit information, and as a result, they might end up misinformed. So, just to emphasize on what Bernard has said, in Kenya, the most trusted online source that I would recommend for people to source for information on drugs and abuse is the NACADA website. And on their publication, like the African Journal of Alcohol and Drug Abuse, is a very educative publication which they publish every now and then based on the recent research they do. So that provides a variety of information where people can get information about these drugs and substance abuse. So I would like to urge people who are listening not to just source information from anywhere, as the internet is vast and anyone can publish anything there just for like monetary purposes or some with evil plans just to mislead others. So they should be very careful when it comes to sourcing information. And also for like some who are in universities, we have clubs and societies, things like peer indicators, peer counseling. Yeah, these particular societies offer their members training on substance and drug abuse. So this is also an area where they can utilize to get information, legit information about drugs and substance abuse. Yeah, and also when it comes to the community level, we also have a community-based organization which specialize in these matters of drug and substance abuse. So they provide the support to people, the community, and provide any necessary information that they might need. So I would like to urge our viewers who are listening to us to check out on these community-based organizations. I know they are in plenty around Kenya. Basically, in my area, the coastal region, there are actually many of them, and they are doing a very good job in creating awareness on drugs and substance abuse. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Hersi. I'm seeing that someone who
I'd
has
like to
joined
add.
us. Yes, Bernard.
I'd like to add that there are a few other places that you can add. If people are very skeptical about government information, or I know of one organization that has been doing a lot of work with churches, and that's the Bible Society of Kenya. They have employed psychologists and counselors to work with them through the trauma healing program. If you'd like to go the spiritual route, that's one way you can look at, which I can recommend. And the other place that you can also look at if you want treatment facilities, addictions treatment facilities that have been there for a while and are also doing nearly the same thing in terms of quality. You can look at the APRAC website, the Addictions Prevention and Rehabilitation Association of Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernard, for adding on to that. So to the people who are listening to this, these are some of the resources that you can reach out to just in case for yourself or for your loved ones who you feel like they could use assistance because they are battling addiction or any other related condition. So I'm seeing someone has joined us, Ken Marau from NACADA. We're just from thank you, Ken.
Welcome, Pendo.
Thank you. We were just almost summing up the conversation, and we were just talking of possible resources where people could get credible information. around matters drug and substance use. And one of the highly recommended resources are from Nakada. So we are honored to have you with us here today. Thank you, Ken. Right. So there probably could be some internet challenges from Ken's side, but we are still honored to have him with us today. I'd like to thank everyone who has been with us through this conversation today. Most importantly, to our panel, having that they have given us a lot of information on matters drug and substance use. Every week we have something set for our audience to go through our Mindful Mondays and our Wednesday live sessions. And this coming Monday on our Twitter page at Chiromo Hospital Group from 10 a.m. we will be talking about understanding bipolar in the local context. And this is in line with our global initiative, #Tufunguke, where we are advocating for people to feel free to talk about their journeys, their experiences, both as persons with lived experience and both as caregivers, for us to understand the extent and the reality of mental health in our community. So thank you so much to everyone who has followed this conversation live. Thank you so much to our panel. And don't forget to, if you would like to speak to someone, to a professional, we have a toll-free line at 0800 220 000, through which on the other side you will speak to one of our psychologists. So feel free to call this number at any time. It is on 24/7. So thank you so much to everyone. And as we conclude, I'd like to give our panel a chance to give their parting shot as we end the conversation. I will start with Hersi.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. And I would first and foremost like to appreciate Jerome Hospital Group for creating this platform for us to share and educate one another on these matters which are affecting our society and us as individuals. And to everyone out there, I would like to say that if you are battling with substance abuse, just know that you are not alone, that there are people out here who are willing to help you fully recover. And to anyone who has a relative or a friend who is undergoing the same, like addiction or any other form of distress, like I would like to urge them not to give up on them, because they might just be the people they need to make full recovery. As I mentioned earlier, having a well-established support system is very, very important to someone who is in recovery. So to everyone out there, if you know someone or if you have someone in your family who is undergoing these kind of challenges, be patient with them, don't give up on them, and give them the necessary support that they need to achieve full recovery. And with that few remarks, I would like to say thank you very much. It has been an informative session and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hersi. On to you, Bernard.
It's been great having this conversation. We'll continue sensitization and advocacy on issues of alcohol and drug use. I know the conversation needs to continue and needs to continue all the time. For those of us who think that they may have a problem or know that somebody has a problem, please reach out for help before it's too late or before it becomes to a position whereby things cannot be reversible. And if anybody may want to reach out to me, I think the links were there on the poster, or you can call me on 0711 100 384. Again, 0711 100 384. Thank you very much, Chiromo Hospital Group, for this. Thank you for working with us.
Thank you so much, Bernard. And thank you for also sharing your contact for the audience to be able to reach you, just in case they would like to. So just as Hersey said, if you are going through this, if you know someone who is going through this, you are not alone. There are different and many organizations or people who are there to walk this journey with you. Addiction is not lack of will, is not weakness. It is a disease, and there are people who are there to walk that journey with you and to support you. So thank you so much to everyone who has followed this conversation. See you on Monday on our Twitter from 10 a.m. Have a great evening.